By the 1970s, Japan was an economic powerhouse. Cities were expanding, technology was booming, and society as a whole felt like it had firmly left the ancient world and its ghosts behind. Yet, right in the middle of this modern progression, the country was gripped by a paralyzing panic. Parents locked their doors, they refused to let their children play outside, and eventually they even stopped sending them to school entirely. The cause of this lockdown was a rumor spreading through the streets about a lone woman. She wore a white surgical mask and would step out of the shadows to approach children walking home alone. Instead of a typical serial killer, Japan faced a spectral figure who paralyzed a modern nation using a single, seemingly innocent question. The encounter always followed the exact same pattern. A child walking down a quiet street is suddenly blocked by a woman. She leans down and softly asks, "Am I beautiful?" It's a disarming question. Looking up at her gentle demeanor and the pretty eyes visible above the mask, the frightened child would almost always offer a nervous yes. Then she reaches up and pulls the mask away. Underneath, her face is brutally mutilated, completely sliced open from ear to ear into a jagged, gaping maw. As the victim freezes in horror, she leans in closer and repeats the question, "Am I beautiful now?" And right there, the child is trapped in a nightmare. This chart shows exactly why her second question is a perfectly designed, unwinnable trap. She forces the victim into a deadly binary choice. If the terrified child tries to be honest and answers no, she immediately pulls out a massive pair of scissors and kills them on the spot. But if they try to appease her and answer yes, the outcome is just as grim. She takes those same scissors and slices the child's mouth to match her own, leaving them to bleed to death in the street. There is no right answer. It is a calculated paradox designed purely to punish. To understand why a spirit would construct such a cruel game, you have to look at the historical trauma that created her. Centuries ago in ancient Japan, legend tells of a woman whose identity centered entirely on her own beauty. She lived for the constant validation of her reflection, believing her looks were her only true worth. She was married to a devoted samurai warrior. Eventually, duty called, and he was forced to leave her behind to fight in a prolonged war. While he was away, she sought the attention of another man. Her husband returned from the battlefield earlier than expected and immediately discovered her betrayal. The samurai drew his sword in a blinding rage. Seeking a punishment worse than death, he slashed her face from ear to ear to permanently ruin the features she prized above all else. As she collapsed, bleeding to death in absolute agony, he stood over her and asked one final cruel question. "Are you proud of your beauty now?" That violent destruction of her identity anchored her to the living world. She became a vengeful spirit, forever frozen in the trauma of that moment, compelled to inflict her pain on others. Fast forward to the 1970s, and that dying trauma had mutated. The samurai's taunt twisted into the slit-mouthed woman's curse, now directed at innocent children walking the modern streets. It's a tragic cycle. She wanders the alleys, desperately seeking validation for her ruined face, yet violently punishes anyone who actually looks at her. But just as quickly as the nationwide panic peaked, it evaporated. Kuchisake-onna completely vanished from Japan without a single explanation. No one knows exactly why she appeared in a modernizing decade, and no one knows why she finally left. That unresolved mystery means the threat of her return always lingers. So, if you are ever walking home alone at night and a masked woman steps out of the shadows to ask you a question, remember the rules of her trap. Under no circumstances should you answer yes, and absolutely do not answer no. There is only one known loophole to survive the encounter. You have to confuse her by asking the one question she herself cannot answer. Why did you leave Japan? If you manage to ask that, and if you somehow make it home alive, let us know in the comments.